شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير ثم الصلاة والسلام على البشير النذير والسراج المنير وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين والمنتخبين. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and His Eminence Sayyid al-Musawi. I apologize to go before you. So, in the last few nights, I was privileged to be with your kids, with your daughters, with your sons. And it was very insightful for me to learn things from them, not to teach them. So the topic I chose for tonight is an Islamic family. When we look at a family, we can talk about 5 different aspects. The relationship between the wife and the husband, the parents and the kids, and then the family between the siblings, and then the family itself with the extended family, and then the family with the wider society. But what I'm going to focus tonight and tomorrow is about the relationship between the wife and the husband. Because the kids, the wider community, the extended family, that's going to be a good relationship if the parents are able to maintain a good relationship. The current studies show that in 2016, the rate of divorce amongst the Muslim families in Australia is about 30%, 1 in 3. And probably if I ask Sayyid al-Musawi how many divorces you have every month, is many. It's going to give you a big number. This is unfortunate. We need to investigate to see what are the reasons. So tonight I'm going to talk about the issues that cause divorce. And then tomorrow talk about the Quranic style, some of the solutions that we can solve. So what I did a literature review. Literature review means to go back to the research to see what are the problems that cause divorce amongst different families. It's going up and down, the voice. So when I looked at the research, there were top 10 reasons why divorce happens amongst the Australian families. And obviously we're living in this society. We cannot say that we are a Muslim family, we are different to others. We are part of this society, and the same problems that other families go through, our families go through as well. So issue number 1, boundary problems. So in the relationship, the spouse tries to change the other one to the habits that they like to have. And the other spouse doesn't want that change to happen. So here conflict arises. And obviously the problem is, before marriage, there was not a proper counseling happening in order to know each other. So the wife wants the husband to change some habits, and the husband wants the wife to change some habits. And here, boundary violation happens. And neither of them are going to be happy, because none of them want to change. Because that's the way they are. Obviously some of the traits you want them to change, but in general, it's very hard to change someone's personality. So, and this reflects the problem that we have in this society. Unfortunately, Muslim families, before going through marriage, there is no proper counseling. Do you know any couples before marriage, they go to a counselor to discuss, to see, to understand their personality and the spouse that they're going to marry? Probably if I say it, not many couples bother to do that because they think they know each other well. But when marriage happens, boundary violation happens because one wants the other person to change, and this leads to divorce at the end. So that's number 1. Issue number 1 is boundary violation. Issue number 2, the wife and the husband cannot differentiate between 2 concepts, talking versus communicating. If you criticize your spouse, this is not called communication. If you pass a comment in a negative way, in a destructive way, this is not called communication. So what's happening? The spouse is not able to express themselves, their feelings, their emotions. So they end up criticizing each other in a negative way, in a bad way, and that leads to emotional conflicts, and at the end leads to divorce. So the problem of differentiating between talking versus communicating. And communication is a key thing in marriage. We are human beings, we're gonna make mistakes, whether you want it or not. But if we are able to communicate our problems, our emotions, maybe you have a bad day. But if you're able to communicate that with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, that can solve many problems. But couples are not able to do that. And that's one of the reasons causing divorce between families in modern Australia. So that's issue number 2. Issue number 3, time management. Obviously we're living in a very rushed society, as sociologists call it the rat race. Everyone is busy. Both are working. One probably is taking care of the kids. So it's not easy. We don't have enough time for each other. And because we don't have enough time for each other, we become busy, overstressed, and we cannot spend quality time together. And that leads again to problem. One British study last year reported that wife and husband or partners spend quality time in a day 37 minutes. 24 hours, wife and husband spend together quality time 37 minutes. And that is shocking. I wonder, why did they marry if they're just going to spend 37 minutes together? And again, one problem is the usage of mobile phones. Just recently there was a protest in Germany against the use of mobile phone by the kids, because the kids were sick of seeing their parents being on the phone all the time. So that's the third issue. The third issue is the issue of time management, not spending enough time together, and that causes its own problems. The fourth problem, obviously when I prepared the talk, I prepared it for young couples. So I apologize to the younger kids if the language is a bit not appropriate for their age. Number 4 is the issue of intimacy. So this here refers to the concept of sexual intimacy, either because of the lack of the time that we mentioned, either one of them is not interested, because of the kids, and unfortunately in our culture, talking about sexual intimacy is a taboo topic, which shouldn't be, because even Quran discusses that they used to come to Prophet, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ. Quran clearly states that, doesn't shy away from it. Women used to come to Prophet, and Prophet is a statement, and they used to discuss the most intimate stuff of their relationship with Prophet. But how many sessions have we had about sexual psychology of sexual intimacy in between couples, between a wife and a husband? How many? Do we know the difference between the physiology? Because the physiology is very different. We don't know. And that leads to problems, because the way a man gets their sexual needs is very different to a woman. And that leads to problems, because one cannot fulfill the needs of the other. One cannot respond to the emotions and the feelings of the other. And that leads to divorce again. So this is partly from the couple side and partly from the religious authority, because they are not, or the psychologists or the counseling people who are in our society or community, because this topic is taboo. It shouldn't be. We should discuss that freely, because we're talking about marriage, we're talking in the family context. So that's issue number 4. Issue number 5, the turn focus. Especially when there is a kid coming into the family, the focus of for example, the wife is turned to the kid, and then the husband left, he feels that he's left alone, or the other way around. So the focus is not given either to wife or the husband, or both are not focusing on each other. And that causes problems. Either one is focused too much with friends, going out with friends. Maybe too much shopping. Maybe spending too much time with family. So that turns the focus from one to another thing. And the wife or the husband feels like they are not being appreciated. They are not being given enough time. And again, that causes emotional conflict because you are not paying attention to one another. So that's issue number 5. Number 6, emotional infidelity. To put that in very simple word, it means cheating. One cheats over the other. And put it out there, it's not acceptable. Obviously to the men, because it's less happening to women. It is not acceptable. Put it on the, I don't know, I can marry 4 times, I can do temporary marriage. It is not right. It is called cheating. And that's where we may differ from the traditional understanding of Quran. Maybe we differ with saying it in the interpretation of Quran. But when we look at the verse about polygamy, it is related to orphans. It's in the context of orphans. It's not in the context of everyday life. And when Prophet came to solve the problems in the society. At that time there was no Centrelink, Cornerlink, social welfare. None of these things existed. So he had to solve it in one way. So marrying without your... Now this is a big problem in Iran. That's why they have to legislate a new law. If you want to marry a second wife, you have to get the permission of your first wife. Because it's a big problem. So again, that's a big issue. Emotional infidelity or cheating. It is not appropriate. Don't do it. It's not right. Sorry if I directed too much. It wasn't meant to be that way, but sometimes you have to do it. Issue number 7. So far we have covered 6 issues. Issue number 7, the issue of money. In English there is a proverb, they say that discuss money or it will discuss. And that's a big problem. Maybe you have a different spending habit to your partner. Maybe you feel different towards money. And this should have been discussed obviously before marriage, so you can know one another. But when it's not discussed, or you hide it away, or you hope that one will change, then you get married. Then the money issue comes. One is stingy, one wants to overspend, and then you get into trouble. Again, that's issue number 7, which is causing many divorces happening in Australian society today. Issue number 8, inability or unwillingness to forgive. Studies have shown that 90% of the problems can be solved if the partner accepts to forgive. And forgiveness doesn't mean that you have in your heart, and each time your husband or wife does something wrong, says that I should have not forgiven you. In Arabic, we have a very beautiful word, kareem al-safh, which is one stage above forgiveness. Forgiveness, al-af, is when you forgive the person, let it go, but it's still in your heart. But kareem al-safh is the one that puts the page away, opens a new page, as if nothing was written on that page. So when we talk about the idea of forgiveness in marriage, means that you completely erase it off your heart and mind and move on. Because life is more than just a few mistakes. And that's how we grow. We grow by accepting one another's faults. So that's issue number 8. Remember, 90% of the problems is because of unwillingness to forgive. And things stay in your heart. 10 years down the track, you remember that again and again and criticize your partner. And issue number 9, lack of appreciation. When one partner feels like they're not appreciated, they are doing all the work. Let's say the wife is taking care of the kids, washing the clothes, cleaning the house. No, I'm not saying that's the role of a wife, but I'm just saying that's the traditional understanding. And then the husband does not acknowledge that. This causes this lack of appreciation. We are all human beings. We need to be acknowledged. We need to be appreciated. It's a very simple thing. If you do something, even if you are close to be a prophet, still you like to be acknowledged. If your husband comes back from work and he's tired, he likes to be acknowledged, even if he says that I do it for the sake of God. Again, another issue which is about emotional care. As we have physical hygiene, we need to have emotional hygiene. And appreciating one another is one aspect of a healthy lifestyle and healthy marriage. And the last one, technology. We are all afflicted with that, unfortunately. You're having dinner, you're texting. You're eating, you're watching Netflix. You bring work to home. You bring your laptop on the dinner table. There is no proper timing together, and that's the problem with technology. Technology today is taking over human hearts. Back in industrial age, meaning 19th and 18th century, when industrialization happened, the machine replaced human power. I'm not sure if you watched the movie called Modern Time by Charlie Chaplin. It's 30 minutes, very insightful. It shows that how men were like machines. Now, we are slaves to technology. We basically, just a recent study showed that 9 hours of the day we spend on the phone. Just the phone, 9 hours. That's crazy, right? Like 1/3 of your life you're sleeping probably. The other third probably either you're eating, showering, toileting, taking care of yourself. And imagine the other third when you're asked, what did you do? I was on my phone. I think it's very surprising to see this data coming out and saying that you're spending that many hours on technology. Just before I wrap up, I would like to mention 5 types of abuse. The health ministry has published that the violence is not just physical violence. Again, that's directed mostly to the men, because out of 100 abuses that happen, 99 are committed by the men towards the woman. And unfortunately, last year, every week, 1 woman died in Australia because of domestic violence. So there are 5 types of abuses. One is called physical violence. And unfortunately, it's happening. As I said, every week, 1 woman was killed. By who? By not a stranger, by their partner. Number 2 is emotional abuse. So abuse is not just hitting someone. I'm sure you've all heard of that phrase, I'd rather be hit than being abused emotionally. Using bad words, swearing words. They are all part of emotional abuse. The 3rd type is verbal abuse. You verbally abuse your partner. Number 4 is sexual abuse. Again, if your partner is not happy, is not interested in engaging in intimacy, it is sexual abuse, regardless of what your sheikh might say. And number 5 is neglect. Neglect is another type of abuse. So 5 types of abuses. Make sure that doesn't happen in your family. Emotional, physical, verbal, sexual, neglect. I'm just going to go through again the 10 issues and then tomorrow some solutions. So technology, lack of appreciation, unwillingness to forgive, the issue of money, emotional infidelity, meaning cheating, turn focus, the issue of intimacy, time management and not spending time enough together, not differentiating between the idea of talking and communicating, and boundary problems. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.